With the stock market at record highs, are you prepared for the next downturn? Corrections can be unforgiving. Smart investors know diversification is the key to financial security. Noble Gold Investments make it easy to diversify with gold. With over $2 billion in sales, Noble Gold has helped thousands of Americans add gold to their portfolios. Open a qualified account today and receive 2 5-ounce Silver America the Beautiful coins as a thank you. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Don't let the next correction catch you off guard. NobleGoldInvestments.com. Do you guys remember that bizarre moment that was almost like the cultural bottom? It was like the cultural cannon, the bottom of the bottom, where we hit the valley when Dylan Mulvaney was paid to promote Bud Light. Seems as if that was the low point of the kind of cultural 4 years. Well, joining us now is Anson Fredericks, author of Last Call for Bud Light. Anson, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here. You are a former president of Anheuser-Busch, so I know you have a lot to share. How on earth did that all happen? And take us back in time. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, Charlie, thank you so much for having me today. And you're absolutely right. I mean, this really was sort of the tipping point. And when Bud Light did the sponsorship with Dylan Mulvaney, I think that was a red pill moment for most of America when they said, we've just had enough of corporations getting involved in political issues. We saw when the NFL got involved with having half their players kneel and accepted it. We saw companies like Disney, who all of a sudden were promoting parental rights in Florida issues that were going on. And then when Bud Light, I mean, the most American of brands, the most American of beers, all of a sudden starts doing this controversial partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, this is really when people had enough. And this is when you actually saw customers left in droves. They lost millions of customers. The company lost billions of dollars of shareholder value. Their profits plunged by $2 billion as well. And this is when all of a sudden you actually saw more companies take a step back and look at some of the really controversial, divisive DEI and ESG policies that have been implemented across corporate America by sort of the Biden administration, by asset managers like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, by a bunch of consultants like McKinsey. And this is when all of a sudden corporations actually took a step back and said, maybe we don't need all this. Maybe this isn't good for business. Maybe we need to sort of reevaluate where we are as a company. And although the pendulum is starting to swing back, this is still very relevant. As you've seen, certain companies like McDonald's, like Walmart, and like Tractor Supply Company have kind of stepped back, but other companies are really leaning in. Just this week, you have Costco, JP Morgan have doubled down on their DEI policies. And then now there's been a lawsuit that's been filed by a lot of DEI officers at companies that are trying to undo some of Trump's recent legislative agenda. So this is very much still a topic that is alive. And I think we're going to not be seeing the end of the DEI movement anytime soon.
So it's just amazing to me. So I want to get into the details here of your book and your experience, but in April of 2023, if my timeline is correct, they decided to make Dylan Mulvaney one of the faces of Bud Light and kind of do this whole thing. And the stock price was at $65.52 cents a share. Now it's at $48.75 a share. You're a former president of Anheuser-Busch. Do you believe that this decision and the backlash has contributed in this nearly 20% decline in their stock over the last year and a half?
Absolutely, it has, Charlie. I mean, you've just seen that Bud Light, which was the biggest beer brand in America, had lost 30% of their sales, 30% of their customers. Other brands that they have, Budweiser, plunged as deeply, and then even took growth brands they have, Michelob Ultra and Busch Light. All of a sudden, those started plunging also. So it's had a huge effect on the stock price. At the same time, the broader stock market has been up almost 40%. So Bud Light down 20, 30%, broader stock market up 40%. So it's had a massive effect. And it's not just at Bud Light. Companies like Target, very similar. When Target 2 years ago got involved in Pride Month and they were having the tuck-friendly bathing suits, as you might recall, their stock is down double digits over that time period, where their biggest competitor, Walmart has taken a big step back. Walmart ditched their divisive DEI policies. They were more focused on the customer. Walmart stock has doubled over that same time period. So I think it's very clear that you're starting to see this really diversion happen. Companies that are leading into controversial DEI, ESG agendas, they continue to shed customers. Whereas ones that are kind of sticking to up for their customers, just focused on providing great product and services, sticking to their mission. Those businesses are going to thrive, especially I think in the coming years. And I think those businesses are going to add a ton of value to their share price. And then also I think they're going to add a lot of value to just our broader sort of American environment. But the private sector and companies used to be an area where people could come together, whether you were black, white, gay, straight, Democrat, Republican, who cares, and just work on the mission of a company, be united around that. And then all of a sudden, the workplace became a very fragmented environment over the last couple of years, with companies taking very controversial stands on defund the police initiatives, on overturning election integrity laws, Roe v. Wade. And there was no reason for this. I think that further inflamed a lot of the division in this country. Some companies have learned their lesson. I think other companies have not. And that sort of messages, I think, still being written and will continue to be written over the next couple of years. And we'll see really some companies separate themselves and others continue to fall behind based off who's going to get involved in political issues moving forward.
So, Anson, help me understand. Tell us the internal story. How did this come to pass? How did we go from Clydesdales to...
Yeah, there's a short story and the long story. So the short story is that the company they adopted really divisive ESG and DEI policies. Now, a lot of corporate America was doing this at the exact same time. They adopted these policies because a lot of people that own Anheuser-Busch tend to be these large asset managers like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, that get a lot of their money from progressive institutions like the state of California, state of New York, European sovereign wealth funds. And there was a big push by these organizations, especially when Trump was first elected, and pulled out of global organizations like the Paris Climate Accord, UN Human Rights Coalition, World Health Organization, that all of these large progressive institutions said, if now Trump and government is not going to solve these so-called existential crises of climate change, of systemic racism, of police brutality, then all of a sudden we need corporations to do this. And for large, mostly New York and East Coast based institutions like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard that manage $20 trillion worth of capital, those were the ones that all of a sudden were the single largest shareholders in companies like Anheuser-Busch, Target, Disney. And they started telling these companies that we need you to start solving all these problems. And the companies really, unfortunately, didn't have much of an opportunity to push back because these companies, they vote for shareholder proposals every single year at companies. They put companies in ESG index funds, which is our funds that you invest money into, hoping that the companies are going to return capital. And they were threatened to be not put in these funds or to not have the support of these large asset managers that were using other people's money to foist these policies on them. And so unfortunately, Anheuser-Busch was uniquely susceptible. The company was bought by a European company called InBev about 10 years ago. This European company allowed them to unfortunately switch the ideology away from sort of American values and just focus on the bottom line, focusing on shareholders, more towards this European model of being beholden to your stakeholders, being involved in programs like ESG and DEI. So the company all of a sudden switched their focus from Clydesdales winning the Super Bowl Ad Meter Award every single year here in the United States.
Totally, the greatest ads there were, yes.
Greatest. This was by far the company that was the best in terms of winning Super Bowl Ad Meter. They won more of them than any other company, but haven't won one since 2011.
And that was one of the reasons why everyone got so upset, is that this wasn't Patagonia, which was well known as like a left-wing environmental company. This is Heartland, St. Louis, as good as it gets, right?
Beer drinking, just great totally. American Midwest.
And all of a sudden,
that's right.
they too are kind of bending the knee. So were they just like trying to be trend followers? Did people inside the company warn them? What was the process that this actually went about?
These guys were trend followers. They were not leaders. This used to be a company that was leaders in America, leaders in terms of setting culture, leaders about humor. And to your point, they had a clear mission historically that Bud Light was supposed to be easy to drink, easy to enjoy. It was the most popular beer in America because it was enjoyed by people across the political spectrum. Everybody loved Bud Light because it was about humor. It was about football. It was about bringing people together. It was authentic. It was not Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's is a brand that tells you that we use 100%. Ice cream to advance a socially progressive mission. So great. If you're eating Ben & Jerry's, it's free market, go eat it. You know that you're going to be supporting defund the police causes and giving land back to Native Americans and all kinds of things Ben & Jerry's does. But if you drank Bud Light, you were just about, this is using the VP of Bud Light at the marketing. It was kind of a fratty beer. That's what it was. And it was a fun beer. It was kind of the life of the party. And that's what they really lost when they started develop when they tried to switch the company more from just one focus on its mission, easy to drink, easy to enjoy, to one that was about a more socially progressive beer. And that's where they really got caught, Charlie, when all of a sudden they do this partnership with Dylan Mulvaney. It blows up in their face. You have Kid Rock that's using the AR-15 to be able to take out a bunch of Bud Light cases. And now the company, all of a sudden, because they had adopted an ESG DEI policy, they couldn't apologize to their loyal customer base, but they couldn't also go and say that we're kind of more about the Ben and Jerry's type of brand, because they were going to lose even more sales.
Really quick, 30 seconds. I want you to plug your book and answer this question in 1 minute. Tight stop. Do you think they've learned their lesson?
So in the book, Last Call for Bud Light, I don't think they've learned their lesson, because here's the deal. If this company's ever going to be redeemed in their customers, really the path to redemption, it goes through forgiveness. But to be forgiven, you have to admit that there was a mistake. So I think this book, it talks about not only the mistake of broader corporate America getting involved in ESG, DEI, programs that didn't deliver any shareholder value and were more divisive, but it really uses the story of Bud Light and uses the story of this company to tell that story, to really make it easy to understand for folks, because Bud Light was the biggest brand. So would love you to read Last Call for Bud Light to learn more about what went wrong in corporate America.
Thank you, Anson.
And to learn what Bud Light needs to do to move forward and get its customer base back.
Thank you, Anson. Really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Charlie.
And really appreciate it.